Good morning everyone, today we're going to be taking a trip down memory lane because NGS has become so much better over time, and I just want to share with you guys the slow progression of NGS becoming a better game. But before we jump into all of that, if you're new to the channel, I upload NGS content daily, so if you do play this game, I would really appreciate a subscribe as it really helps out the channel. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin the video. So the very first thing I want to showcase over here is where can you actually see all of this information. You need to come to the official website, which is PSO2.com. You go to Overview and then go to Roadmap. Once you come to the roadmap, by default it's going to be on NGS version 2. You can actually click this little tab at the top and then go back to NGS, and you're going to be able to go all the way back to 2021 when NGS first released. And the funny thing is NGS actually launched on June 9th, 2021, so that's actually 69 if you look at the month and then the date. So I just found that really funny, and I think when this game first came out I thought they did this intentionally. I don't really know if it's intentional or not, but nevertheless NGS was launched on June 9th and it was a massive flop. The reason was because there were server instability issues. A lot of people came into the game to try it out and they were very excited for the game. But the issue was there was so much servers instability. And basically you couldn't play the game. You could log in, you could run around, but if you hit an enemy, basically you had to whack an enemy for like 10 minutes and then suddenly all these damage numbers just suddenly appear and the boss just instantly explodes or the mobs around you just instantly die, and it was really unplayable, which was really unfortunate. But the worst part of NGS's launch was there was simply no content. We had the Alio region and I believe max level was like 15 or 20 or something, and so you were able to finish everything and unlock everything and complete all the content available in the game in like a week at most. That was as you were really stretching it out, but most people were done in like 3 days. And the crazy thing was in July, which is the month right after the launch, we actually got an NGS headline and then it was like, oh yeah, we're adding in a seasonal event. The crazy thing about this seasonal event was it was called the 9th anniversary event, but it did not feel like an anniversary event at all. It felt like a regular seasonal event. But the crazy thing was we were limited to the number of points you could farm per week. So it was really bad. Basically, you were forced to log in every single week, you farm up a bunch of seasonal points, and then the game hard caps you. And it's like, nope, you can't play anymore. You can go kill enemies, but you're not going to earn any resources that you're going to need in order to upgrade your gear, in order to buy all these nice cosmetic items. And you were just hard time gated. It was really awful, and these were really dark times because we already had nothing to do in Alio, and then they were hard capping us throughout this event. You know, we were thinking, oh, this event is going to be the saving grace, there's going to be stuff to do, and then they hard cap us and the time gated us, and it was really bad. And then move forward to August of 2021, we finally get a new urgent quest. We get the mining rig defense Alio. You know, when it first came out, we were excited. It was something different. It was like, oh, thank God it's something different. But it was mining rig defense, so everyone soon grew tired of it, and it kind of sucked. But what also came out in August 2021 was, of course, the Braver class. Now, the Braver class on release was absolutely garbage. It was a very poorly tuned class, poorly balanced class. It sucked. But I still played it because I'm a hardcore Braver fan. The issue with the Braver was there was no fluidity, there was no movement abilities, you were super stationary, and it just felt really bad to play the Braver because, well, you just didn't do damage and you couldn't move around as fluidly, and you didn't have anything to smooth things out. It was like a super duper clunky class to play, and it really sucked. Now the crazy thing is, when the Braver class came out, the developers were like, there's your big content drop, oh my gosh, you've got a new class to play, that should keep you guys busy for the next 3 months, right? They couldn't have been more wrong. Unfortunately, not everyone plays every single class and levels every single class to maximum, builds full min-max gear on every single class. That is not the case. This applies to the JP side as well. Most players, the majority of them, usually just stuck with one class that they really enjoyed and played that class only and built gear for that class only. So the developers' original plan of like, hey, we're just gonna release a new class every 3 months and it's gonna be enough content for everyone, obviously obviously did not pan out. So moving on, for the next 3 months, September, October, and November, they just released a bunch of seasonal events and a lot of scratches, like an ungodly amount of scratches. It became a running joke from the NGS headline that it would be like 3 minutes of content and then like 20 minutes of just ads of AC scratches, because it was just that bad. And you know, Sega did take the criticism because, you know, they got bombed on their YouTube. Like, the dislike ratio was absolutely insane. And so Sega did take this to heart and were like, hey, maybe we should step back a little bit on the AC scratches and maybe focus a little bit more on the content that people actually want. And so finally we move on to December 14, 2021, and this is the first quote-unquote saving grace, or the first step in the right direction for NGS. But keep in mind, this has already been 6 months before we actually take one step in the right direction, and this was when we finally got Retem. So we got chapter 2 of the story, we got Retem, we got our level cap increase to level 35, we got 5-star rarity weapons and armors, we got the arrival of the title system. Yes, we did not have the title system until 6 months after the game came out, and even when the title system came out, it was really buggy and it did not record all of the stuff that we did in the past 6 months, or it recorded some things, I believe, but it was really jank. And then we were also bombarded with a ton of AC scratches again and some quality of life changes. This is going to be a pattern. You're going to constantly see me or hear me say that, oh yeah, there's quality of life changes, because this is something that Sega does pretty well. They hear the community complain and like, oh my god, there's XYZ problem, and then they fix it like 6 months later when everyone's forgotten about the problem. But this is just a trend that's going to continue to happen. But that completes 2021. It was an incredibly rough year for NGS, simply because there was nothing for the player base to do. The quote-unquote endgame content was literally sitting in an exploration zone, waiting for it to storm for Gigantics to spawn. If you watched any of the big streamers back then, we literally just sat in an exploration zone and we would play another game or would stream another game while we're waiting for it to storm. The moment it storms, we tab back into NGS, we get like 5 minutes of fun against a Gigantics, we kill the Gigantics, and then we go back to AFKing. And the crazy part is, back then, if you didn't kill the Gigantics within the time limit before the storm ended, it would despawn. So you had to kill it within the time limit. If your group didn't have enough damage, or if some randoms came into your room and then just increased the boss's HP, then it's just tough luck. Nobody gets any loot and the Gigantics just disappears and runs away. And it caused a lot of community drama, which is why we have its current iteration now, where it's like, as long as you're attacking or if you have aggro of a Gigantics, it just stays there forever, which is a much better change in my personal opinion, because it's not that much of a DPS check anymore. But yeah, you know, those were really dark times. 2021 was very bad for NGS. Even though the Retem update was very welcomed, but I believe it was very well received, simply because before the Retem update, we had nothing to go at. So yeah, obviously the Retem update was very welcomed and very good. But moving on to 2022. So in January, we didn't really get much. We got the winter event, we got seasonal world trials for the second time. I believe it was first introduced when Retem dropped. Basically, this was the Stellar Graces. You ran around, you got a lot of star gems. This was a very nice event because it just allowed a lot of people to gain a lot of star gems, so we couldn't complain about this. But again, there was a severe lack of content, simply because they added this really high tier rarity weapon called the Relic series, where it was like, oh yeah, these weapons only drop once in like every 20 bajillion kills or something. It was an incredibly low drop rate for this weapon. Think of it like the Tisha weapons that we have right now and its insane drop rate. It was a little bit more common than the Tisha weapons. I want to say, like, you know, within the first 2 weeks, you were able to see a couple of these relic weapons on the marketplace, so it wasn't as rare as the Tisha. Personally, I think they should revert to that drop rate, to the relic drop rate, because I felt like that was a little bit more fair. The Tisha drop rate right now is just absolutely bonkers. It's just like, yeah, you need to win the lottery to get a Tisha weapon. It's kind of stupid. And yeah, it was still really dark times, because even though we did get Retem and it was really awesome, and I think I gave it like an 8 or a 9 out of 10 for the update because I really enjoyed it, but that honeymoon period wore off really quickly. And so in January we didn't really get much, but in February we got the concerts from Nadare, as well as the very first Dark Falls fight. So this was a huge milestone for NGS, because this woke everyone up. Everyone was like, okay, things are finally moving in the right direction. We got treated like crap for the past 8 months, and now we actually have something cool to look forward to. So concerts were something that we had in the base game forever, and we were just like, yo, where the hell is our concert? So we finally got our concert, which was with Nadare, but you know, it's been like 2 years since we've gotten a new concert, so I'm kind of like, okay, are we getting a new concert soon? I really hope we are. But, you know, nevertheless, we were very excited in the month of February of 2022 because new concert as well as the Dark Falls fight. Obviously, the Dark Falls fight was the main attraction because we got new gear from it, we got new weapons, I believe we got new armors as well. So it was really good. It was a fun time and everyone was excited for the Dark Falls fight. But then we move over to March of 2022 and we lose steam again, because again it feels like a filler month. It was just another seasonal event, and the seasonal event just wasn't very interesting. It was just kind of like, okay, that's great, I guess. And of course, throughout all of this we were getting the NGS mission passes, and you could see slowly but surely that the prizes and the rewards in these mission passes were getting better and better. So it was like, all right, that's pretty cool, you know, the game is improving. And then on April 2022 we got another big update, or another big content drop, where we got the high rank sectors in Retem, we got the geometric labyrinth, we got our level cap increase to 45, and then of course we got a whole bunch of new quality of life features, or like fixes. So this was really interesting because a lot of people, myself included, were very excited for the geometric labyrinth. We were hoping that this was going to be Divide Quest. We were hoping that this was going to be what La Ciel exploration was. So we were like, oh my goodness, it's finally here, a randomized dungeon based thing that you can run over and over, that's going to have a ton of worthwhile loot and all of that stuff. But unfortunately, geometric labyrinth was definitely not that. It was a dungeon based thing, but the thing was, it was the same thing every single run, and the loot was very subpar, and all of the mobs scaled to your level, and the HP scaling with the modifiers in order to get an S rank were absurd, and it didn't live up to the hype, unfortunately. So geometric labyrinth was quite the flop, and a lot of people played it for like maybe a couple weeks and were just like, yeah, I'm never doing this again, and that really sucked. Then in May of 2022, it was NGS's first anniversary event. This was alright, it wasn't too bad. They did give us randomite, they gave us a bunch of like other ways to get a bunch of items. They introduced the captains into the game as well, which gave us the mastery capsules. The event exchange shop finally uncapped the points that you can farm for, so you're able to farm for as many seasonal points as you wanted, and you could just buy everything out of the shop on day one if you played enough. We started getting new limited time quests which were actually worth running. So this was the Dazzling Chaos Suppression operation, where you were able to farm mastery capsules because there's a high chance of a captain spawning at the end, which was really cool. And then we also got Mining Rig Defense Retem. Now people weren't as excited for this because we played the Alio version and we looked at the Retem version, I was like, it's basically the same. So it just kind of sucked, and nobody really wanted this. We wanted like Dark Falls type of fights, you know, where it was like, oh my god, it's an epic scale, it's a huge boss, you gotta kill it, and there's like pseudo mechanics. But you know, we weren't the biggest fan of Mining Rig Defense, at least I wasn't, and my alliance wasn't. You know, we were like, oh god, it's Mining Rig Defense, can we just run anything else other than this? So you know, unfortunately this was not very well received. But then June of 2022 rolled around, and this was the next major update breakthrough, which was of course Kavaris. So Kavaris update was actually very controversial, I want to say. A lot of people were on their last straw when Kavaris came out. They're like, listen, Retem was awesome, but we've had 6 months of garbage, and like, can we finally get something good? And a lot of players were like, if Kavaris isn't good, we're quitting. And for some people it lived up to the hype, but for the majority of players, they weren't very happy with Kavaris because the storyline wasn't very memorable. Nobody really cared about the Power Ranger gang over here. And then like the snow area was cool, but after about like a week, you resorted back to the same thing, which was just combat zone farming, and there just wasn't a lot of stuff to do. Like, we had purple triggers, we had yellow triggers, we had combat zone farming, and then we had urgent quest, and it was pretty much that. Like, they did introduce the new gorge area, which was really cool because you could fight ancient enemies, but I mean, look at it now. Nobody farms the gorge now. Nobody farms these ancient enemies, and these ancient enemies were really cool when they were first introduced. They made it sound really cool. It was like, oh yeah, you know, these super crazy bosses spawn during blizzards, and they're super powerful, and they drop this material that you need in order to craft your Kaiser weapons, which are really powerful weapons. But then again, you could also farm for a rugged weapon, which is basically the Tisha variant of back in the Kavaris days, where it was a super rare weapon that would never drop. It did drop, but it was stupidly rare, like incredibly rare. And the crazy thing was, Sega didn't even say that there was going to be a rugged weapon that could drop. Like, players found out about this after they invested into their weapons, and then they're like, wait a second, where did this higher rarity weapon come from? And Sega didn't say squat. It was just a surprise for the entire community, and people were just like, but I just used all of my expensive Addy capsules on XYZ weapon, and now you tell me there's an entire new tier of weapons? And so this caught a lot of people off guard, and a lot of people were very upset about that because they're like, oh, you're just withholding information, blah blah blah, and it did really suck. And so in my review of Kavaris, I believe I gave it an 8 out of 10, and a lot of people were very pissed off at me because they're like, bro, this is not an 8, this is like a 4. And yeah, a lot of people were not very happy with the Kavaris update, and I believe probably a lot of people actually did quit the game during the Kavaris update because they were just like, yep, this is the last straw, I'm done. But we did also get Darkfall's Interception rank 2, but that was basically just a souped up version of the current Darkfalls that we got like all the way back in February. So a lot of people are like, bro, it's the same thing, you just jacked up its HP. It did have a new moveset, and this was the first time that they introduced a death limit, where it was like, oh yeah, you could only die 5 times as a team, and you got to beat it within the 15-minute time limit. So it was really cool in that way, but you know, it was a little bit too late. A lot of people had already quit the game. A lot of people had already left the game, and they're like, yep, I'm done, I quit. So again, it was kind of dark times when the Kavaris update came out. It was good for the first week or two because it was new content, obviously, but after everyone burned through all of that and realized, you know, what the quote-unquote end game was, they're like, yeah, this ain't for me, and they left. But then moving to July of 2022, and this is the PSO2 10th anniversary event. So over here, we did get a bunch of cool stuff again, but there wasn't anything groundbreaking or anything new. So a lot of people again were just like, oh man, it's just another seasonal event. But when we moved over to August, we finally got the new class Waker. So this is the new summoner class, or the improved summoner class for NGS. A lot of people were very hyped for it. There were a ton of people covering this class. Unfortunately, after it came out and people played it, it didn't live up to a lot of people's expectations, unfortunately. A lot of the summoner mains out there, this was basically this class but in the base game, they were like, yeah, this ain't the summoner, this feels totally different, and unfortunately it just didn't live up to the hype, and a lot of people were very disappointed. Now they did introduce a new game mode in this update, which was the Cannonball Rumble. I mean, Cannonball Rumble was fun for time to time. Like the first time I played it, I thought that was really interesting, but personally it wasn't for me. But I do know some people who still enjoy Cannonball Rumble, but personally I just don't like obstacle course type of stuff. I don't like picking up balls and breaking targets and stuff. It just wasn't fun for me personally. And then of course we got a bunch of new side stories and new mini episodes, but the main attraction for August 2022 was of course the Waker class. That was the thing that everyone was excited for. Then we moved over to September, and again it was just another filler month. It was just a lot of seasonal event stuff again. They did a new quest, which was Cannonball Strike. Because they realized that Cannonball Rumble, not a lot of people liked it. They wanted to kill more things. So Cannonball Strike was like, oh yeah, you gotta kill more enemies and solve less puzzles. And people tend to gravitate toward that a little bit more. But again, it was just a filler month. Then October rolled around and we finally got the Melty Blood collaboration. I believe this was one of the first collaborations we got, and a lot of people were very excited for it because it was like, oh my goodness, it's Melty Blood, it's like, you know, it's an NGS collaboration. Before this, we did get like an Attack on Titan collaboration, but the thing was, all of those cosmetics that we got from those collaborations were base PSO2 cosmetic items, so it didn't look very good on the NGS model or the NGS body type. And this was, I think this was the first collaboration that we got that was actually fully NGS, so it was really nice. But on top of that, of course, we got a huge content drop where our level cap was increased to level 65, and we got new high rank sectors, and we got all class rebalancing. So they basically buffed every single class in this update, so it was really good. It was a nice time to play, nice time to enjoy the game, because they did also add the new high rank sectors in Ritem Al Noth as well as Makid lower levels. So these were the Ritem combat zones. So I mean, that was cool. They also added the new NPCs in co-op trials. So before, we didn't actually have like notable NPCs in the combat trials, so this was when they introduced Manon and Aina, Nadare and Mosan and the whole gang over here. So yeah, it was just nice to see a bunch of notable NPCs. It used to just be random no-name NPCs and we're just like, who the hell is this guy? So that was a nice little change. They also added PSE burst Fortes, which was like all gold enemies. I'm sure some of you guys know what the Fortes is, but this was added so late, so late, and yeah, it was just really rough. But then in November of 2022, they had the Overlord scratch. A lot of people were very excited for this. I was very excited for this. I was like, oh my god, Overlord collaboration. But it was another filler month. I think the Overlord collaboration was pretty much the only highlight. Oh yeah, they did add like a seasonal special scratch, so it was like a free-to-play way to get these scratch tickets in order to get a bunch of cosmetic items, which was really nice. But the event itself just kind of felt the same, because as you probably have heard me sound like a broken record, we always have like an exciting month with some content drop, then we have like a filler month of just seasonal event, then we get another exciting month, and the trend just kind of goes like that. And yeah, November of 2022 was just one of those filler months again. Then we come to December of 2022, and this was another major update, and this is of course when we got Stia. Stia was very well received. I believe Stia was probably one of the most well received regions out of all the other regions, simply because the story was finally building up to a climax where it was all like, oh yeah, you know, we're finally getting somewhere. And the characters were a little bit more likable. You know, we had Glenn, we had Kanui, we had a bunch of more notable characters, and they seemed to play a more important part in the story. And even though the story itself was relatively short, you can blast through all of it in like maybe like 2 to 3 hours, but it was a very engaging and interesting story. So a lot of people preferred this way more than the Kavaris update, because the Kavaris update was incredibly long and dragged out and boring, and it was just a build up to nothing basically. While the Stia update just started you and just threw you into the deep end, and we're just like, yep, we are under attack, you gotta solve these problems, we're gonna die if you don't do this, go. And it was just so much more interesting, so much cooler. And on top of the interesting story and of course the new region, we also got our level cap increase to level 70, we got new urgent quests, new battle dia, we got a bunch of new quality of life features, new changes, which actually made the game feel a lot smoother, a lot better. And it was just overall a very good update. A lot of people were very happy with the Stia region. I personally think that this was a good update across the board. Now you guys already know the trend, so January again was just a filler month. We got the New Year's event, a bunch of seasonal event stuff. Sure, there was a lot of freebies and a lot of cosmetic items that you can earn by just simply playing the game, but it was just another filler month. The Geometric Labyrinth did get updated. We did get the new rank 2 version of it, so that was pretty cool. Rank 2 was much better than rank 1. So that was very nice. We also got a new combat sector, which was the Nucent Plant. Nucent Plant was revolutionary at the time when it came out, because it was the first combat zone where you could fight every single mob, because the biome itself would change after a PSE burst. So this was really cool at the time, because it was like, okay, I can keep farming here and I won't get sick of it because I'm constantly fighting different stuff. So at the time, this was really cool. But that was nothing compared to the February update of this year. And the February update of this year was because we got the final form of Dark Falls, Dark Falls Aegis. and this was a big deal. This was a really cool boss fight. This was a really fun boss fight. DFA is definitely one of my favorite boss fights until they buffed its HP and skyrocketed. Then it wasn't fun because, you know, it took forever to kill it. But other than that, we also got the Niji-Sanji collaboration as well, which is really cool. We actually got a Hololive collaboration earlier, but I forgot to mention it. I actually forgot what month it came out, but we did get a Hololive collaboration before we got the Niji-Sanji collaboration. But nevertheless, it was really cool, the Niji-Sanji stuff. They had their talent actually sing songs that were on the TVs as like a concert buff and stuff like that. So that was really cool, really interesting. But, you know, the main thing that everyone was excited for was, of course, Dark Falls Aegis. And then they also introduced a new 24-man limited time quest, which was a boss rush type of content. That was really cool. And then we also got our new Neo A as well as Neo J weapons introduced into the game. So this was a good time. You know, this was a relatively well-received update in February. Then we move on to March, and yet again, it is another filler month, where we get the limited time event Spring 2023. We got the new giant mutants that spawned in the exploration zones, and this, you know, encouraged a lot of people to farm in the exploration zones. We were farming for Dreadkeepers back then because Dreadkeepers were pretty good back then, or they were still pretty popular. I personally used a lot of Dreadkeepers in my build. But, you know, as you can see right now, well, it is definitely not meta right now because of our weapon giving us 100% crit chance. But back then, it was quite a big deal. So a lot of people farmed the giant mutants, farmed the exploration zones, farmed the veterans, and it was a good time. But it was another filler month, nothing crazy. Then April rolled around. April of this year was huge because the Slayer dropped. Everyone was like, Luster when, Luster when, Luster when. Like, ever since the game released, all of my Luster mains in the base game were like, I refuse to play this game till my class is released. And finally, they released a Luster in NGS. They did rename it to Slayer, but it plays very similar to the Luster. It's a very fast-paced, very smooth, very high damage, incredibly squishy type of class, but you had a lot of ways to deal a lot of damage, and it was relatively easy to pick up and learn. I actually did a video on the Slayer where I just used simplified movement, and I actually beat the freaking Geometric Labyrinth rank 2 with it, and it was kind of ridiculous. A lot of people took that the wrong way though. They were like, oh look, Karo's just showing how brain dead this class is, but that wasn't really the purpose of the video. It was just saying like, listen, this class is freaking awesome, it's really fun to play, and look at all these crazy moves. Even if you just use simplified movement, like, you don't need to be crazy mechanically skilled to be able to just enjoy the class. That was the purpose of that video, but you know, some people took it the wrong way and they were like, oh my god, Karo's so biased to Braver, he's just showing that Slayer sucks because Braver #1. But it's okay, you know, overall this was a very good update because the new Slayer class was freaking awesome. Now, on top of the Slayer class, we also got chapter 5 of the story, which was the build-up of going to La Ciel, which was also pretty cool. We also got a huge revamp to our dailies and our weeklies, where we actually gained a lot more resources. This was a very important change because of the upgrade cost. The thing about the upgrade cost, as many of you guys might know, is it costs a lot of Meseta and it costs a lot of materials to upgrade your weapons, to limit break your weapons, to enhance your weapons. And so Sega needed to make some fundamental changes to our dailies and weeklies, or the way that people can get resources. And so this was when they did a big change where it's like, yeah, you know, we're gonna give you a lot more resources now in order to fund all of these crazy upgrades. Then in May of 2023, we got the NGS 2nd anniversary event. They made a huge deal about this. They gave us the dual quest, they gave us a seasonal event, they gave us a ton of freebies. They basically just showered us with a ton of star gems, a ton of free cosmetic items, and a ton of really nice stuff. But all of these freebies were overshadowed through the drip marketing of NGS version 2. They did do a little bit of drip marketing, well, a lot of it actually, and they're like, yes, next month is gonna be NGS version 2, and everyone got super excited because they're like, oh my god, we're finally getting proper content drop. You know, they're gonna nuke the entire planet and remake the game, and it's gonna be great. That's what a lot of people thought, and you know, a lot of people, myself included, were like, they're gonna improve the game at the very least, right? We can't go backwards, we can't get worse now, right? And yeah, fast forward to June 7th, 2023. This was when NGS version 2 dropped, and it was a dumpster fire to say the least. It seemed like we reverted back to like the initial release of NGS, because so many people were excited for this update that when it finally came and they're like, oh yeah, these are the new things we added, a lot of people were like, that's it? Question mark? Because it didn't live up to the title of version 2. So they basically added the new creative spaces, which was really good. Creative spaces is very, very awesome, but it wasn't for everyone. And I want to say like half of the community was like, this is awesome. The other half was like, I'm never going to touch this content. And then we got new story where we went up to La Ciel, which was really cool. We got new skills, but they weren't photon art. So people are kind of like, meh, okay, that's cool, I guess. And then we got the new portable holograms. We got the new starless enemy types, as well as the new 9-star rarity weapons. So, you know, there were some cool updates in this, but it was just overshadowed by the fact that everyone had such high expectations of version 2. We were hoping that, hey, this game is finally going to get better. It's finally going to get good. And it just didn't live up to that, because everyone was like, what is this stuff? Like, we didn't ask for this. And so even though they did give us a lot of content in NGS version 2, it was simply just overshadowed because a lot of people were like, yeah, we didn't ask for this. They also increased the level cap to level 75. So that's the current cap of our live servers right now. But yeah, June was just a really bad month. A lot of people were just really, really upset. Then moving on to July, again, this was another filler month. We got the 11th year anniversary, we got the limited time quest, the Nazan Big Quiz, we got the urgent quest, Remnants of Ambition. These were pretty cool things, but again, a lot of people treated it as like another filler month. So it was kind of like, meh, whatever. And then we finally come to August of 2023, which is the live patch right now. And this was a very, very good update because they finally added in the La Ciel exploration, which was the new standing quest. So originally, this was supposed to come out with the version 2. So if this came out with version 2, I think a lot more people would be like, all right, it lives up to the hype. It does count as version 2. Because this was what everyone wanted. It was Divide Quest in NGS. It's not exactly Divide Quest, but it felt close enough to Divide Quest, and the loot was amazing, and the gameplay was fun, and it was randomized every single day. So it was just a game mode that you could sink your teeth in. It was content that you can continuously farm because it just had all the loot that you needed. It had a fun game mode, and each run was short enough so you didn't feel like you were wasting your time. Even if you got a really bad pug group, it's like, okay, whatever, move on to the next game, and it was just rinse and repeat, and it was just a really fun game mode to farm. But most notable about the August update is the new high difficulty quest, Sign of the Planet Breaker. This is one of the first pieces of content that actually gear checked you and was like, listen, if you want to farm the hardest stuff, if you want to do the high-end content, you need this gear. You need all of the gear that you can farm at La Ciel Exploration. It kind of gave a goalpost for the majority of players and being like, listen, you want to be good at the game, you need to be able to beat this content. And so it inspired a lot of players to be like, all right, I'm going to farm La Ciel Exploration until I puke blood because I need all of this high-end gear in order to beat this singular piece of content. And this was the catalyst of what inspired a lot of people to farm a ton of La Ciel Exploration, to farm this repeatable content over and over and over, because the loot was good, the gameplay was fun itself already, and this boss fight is freaking epic. I really, really enjoyed this boss fight. And even after completing this 10 times in a row, I still am not sick of this boss fight. I really enjoy this boss fight. And I think Sega should do more of these things in order to elevate the goalpost, in order to inspire people to be like, oh yeah, I need to gear up now because I want to beat XYZ content. So the Darkfall Solus fight was definitely one of the highlights for this month. We also got the enhancing of our preset skills, so that was the Fixa system update. We got a bunch of new weapon camos, we got a bunch of new AC scratches, and then we also got the Uncle from Another World collaboration, which is really awesome. So overall, the August update was very well received. This was the update that a lot of people are like, all right, NGS, I'll give you another chance. I'll come back to the game, simply because it was just a lot more streamlined, a lot nicer to play the game. I want to give a lot of credit to actually La Ciel Exploration. I feel like that was what made this month awesome. But that concludes our trip down memory lane. Basically, the TLDR is NGS originally sucked. When it first came out, it was so bad. I have no idea how I was able to make daily content back in the Aleo days. Like when we literally had nothing to do. Max level is level 20, we only had combat zones, and there wasn't anything to farm for. Like you'd go to combat zone, you get like your level 2 or level 3 capsules, and there was just nothing to do. It's like you're fully maxed out in like a week. And yeah, that was like a whole 6 months. I have no idea how I managed to pull off daily content like that. But nevertheless, NGS has gone a long way. We've improved vastly. Now there's so much more things to do. I'm sure a lot of people are like, yeah, sure, there's a lot of things to do. You know, there's LaCL exploration, and then there's more LaCL exploration. But, you know, you've got so many more options. You've got your combat zones, you've got your dual quest, you've got your LaCL exploration, you've got your creative spaces. You have a lot more flavors and different things to mess around with versus back in the day. Like you rewind a year ago, 2 years ago, we literally had combat zones and combat zones, and that was it. If you didn't like combat zones, you were lobby grinding, and that, you know, lobby grinding isn't for everyone, but I know some people do enjoy it. But that was it. That was literally it. There was nothing else. You wanted to do anything else, too bad, there's nothing for you. And yeah, then of course there were a lot of quality of life changes. I didn't cover them in this video because, you know, it's kind of boring stuff, but the game has improved vastly. It's become so much better. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the future. I'm pretty optimistic about things. I think September is going to be another filler month, unfortunately. Now we are getting the Oshinoko collaboration, so that is something to look forward to if you do like that anime. But I'm fully expecting it to just be another seasonal event. It's going to be another filler month. It's not going to be very crazy, but it's definitely going to be helping a lot of people who haven't hit the 150% potency yet, because you're going to be able to get a lot of capsules from the event shops and stuff like that. So that definitely helps a lot. But November and December are probably going to be the big months that I'm going to be looking forward to. We actually already have the roadmap over here. So you can see in October and November, we're getting a Halloween event. We're getting new high rank sectors in Ritem. We're getting another dual quest, unfortunately. We're getting more urgent quests, which is pretty cool. And then limited time quest times 4. So, you know, that's okay, I guess. That's pretty cool. We are, of course, getting chapter 6, part 3, and then we're getting more creative space stuff over here, and then we're getting a sci-fi anime collaboration, so that's pretty cool. We can look forward to that, as well as a sci-fi toy product collaboration. I have no idea what that's going to be. But then we move on to December, and you can see December is going to be a big deal because we're getting the Christmas event, we're getting another ultra high difficulty standing party quest, we're getting another dual quest, as well as a limited time quest, and this looks like the big bad boss. You know, we're getting chapter 6 part 4, which is probably going to be the finale of chapter 6, where we fight the big bad, and you know, this looks like a crazy starless enemy of some sort, so definitely looking forward to fighting this. And then we're also getting another collaboration with an action anime. I swear to God, give me Bleach, Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, just any of those, okay? Just please, please. I want to see Bleach or Demon Slayer, because I'm a braver and I'm definitely not biased. Just give me one of those, please, and I'll be a very happy boy.
Special thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you again.
But yeah, that's all I wanted to cover in today's video. Hopefully you guys found it interesting. If you did, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye!